weekend detentions were the largest mass arrests in Canadian history. Were innocent people thrown in jail? There are new questions about police tactics. The weather was cold and soggy, but the welcome was warm.
It is very good to be home.
The Queen arrives in Halifax to kick off a 9-day Canadian tour. And what are you giving baby? A new Canadian study reveals most processed toddler foods have way too much sugar. Well, the summit may be over, but the questions remain. Several hundred people woke up this day after the G20 summit in police detention. They were arrested in Toronto over the weekend. Tonight, the anger among many of their friends and supporters is strong. The National's Nala Ayed went to find out who some of them are and why they're still so riled up. Nala.
Peter, there's never been this many detentions related to one event in Canadian history, ever.
And police have rarely been the target of this much wrath. The summit's over. Some of the same protesters went to police headquarters today to demand the release of those detained, accusing police of breaching their rights.
I know everybody's upset about the black bloc, but, you know, people that are sitting down singing songs are clearly not the ones responsible for setting anything on fire.
Police say the majority of the detainees were responsible for criminal acts, but activists maintain many others were caught up in the weekend sweep.
And we had floats.
Take Taylor Fluke, for example. She's an organizer for an environmental group, but on Saturday evening she was accused of disrupting the peace. She says she wasn't alone.
Was there any aggressive action towards the police there?
No.
Did you attack any public property?
No.
Did you hurt anybody?
No.
Was there any weapons?
No. We were seated on the ground, holding up our signs, peace signs, saying this is a peaceful protest. What we were shouting was, peaceful protest.
Toronto's mayor suggests the worst offenders weren't even from Toronto.
People who deliberately came to Toronto to commit crimes.
That more precisely, they came from Quebec. Many of them were arrested Sunday during a raid at the University of Toronto. Police confiscated what they called street weapons. But those arrested say the police targeted them.
We never knew exactly why we were arrested, but we had a Quebec plate, so that's probably why.
Police would only say there are detainees from around Canada and the U.S. Also among the arrested have been journalists, lawyers, even passers-by. Some say police mistreated the detainees.
They're being denied food and water, they're in cold cells, they don't have blankets.
It is purposely infuriating. Reasonable requests were not met. So you're just asking for water, and 20 hours later you're yelling for water.
And Peter, many of the people we spoke to told us they plan on launching lawsuits against the police. Meanwhile, the police themselves reject the accusations, and they say that the dozens of cameras installed at the detention facility will eventually determine who is right. Peter.
All right, Nala, thank you. Nala Ayed in Toronto tonight. Well, as Nala mentioned, the more than 900 summit-related arrests were the largest mass arrests in Canadian history. Where do the others fall? The next largest happened nearly 20 years ago, 1993, the Clayoquot Sound logging blockades. Next comes the 1970 October crisis, then the 2001 Quebec City summit. The arrests notwithstanding, many people are questioning police tactics over the weekend. In one instance, police boxed people into an area of downtown Toronto. They herded hundreds into a small space at the streets of Queen and Spadina. Some were protesters, others were just trying to get to where they were going. Laurie Graham went to find out what police were saying today about their tactics.
Most of the thousands of police officers who had parts of this city surrounded for days have thinned out, but questions about their tactics still linger. Over the weekend, scenes like these sprouted up in pockets around the downtown. Police sprayed a mixture of talcum powder and tear gas at protesters to disperse them. They arrested dozens at a time, even bystanders who were in the wrong place at the wrong time. But let others simply rampage. And and there were constant standoffs. Some turned violent.
That's what a nightstick looks like.
Others lasted hours where people were boxed in, unable to move. That tactic, police say, provided a protective seal around the first security perimeter and stopped protesters from penetrating the high-profile red zone where the leaders were located. When some protesters turned rogue and became violent, police say they did what they had to do to get control and hold their line.
Any security plan had to include what are we going to do about these people when they come, because we know they're going to come because they've advertised it.
But civil liberties groups say police were heavy-handed and overly zealous.
Clearly, we recognize the police need to be on the streets at times like this, but they absolutely need to do so in ways which give full regard for fundamental human rights concerns.
Some security experts say police couldn't win in such a situation.
It's a lose-lose for them. If you respond with violence, you're deemed to be excessive, and if you don't respond quick enough, you're blamed for being, too lax in security.
Civil liberties groups and Amnesty International want somebody else to decide, demanding an independent review of police conduct. Peter?
Lori Graham in Toronto. Our Susan Ormiston spent the weekend on the streets, reporting on the protests and the police. Today, she spoke to the head of the Integrated Security Unit about what went down, and our TV cameras got exclusive access inside the Police Operations Center.
This was command and control for G8 and G20 security, a converted warehouse in Barrie, Ontario. We got a peek inside the high-tech, state-of-the-art operations room now that it's winding down.